Hello! It's been forever since I made a video, especially for this series, or just in general. Last few weeks, it's been difficult for me to find time when the house I'm living in is completely unoccupied for a little while, so that I can sit down and make a video without any distractions. When people are here, they're in the kitchen using the noisy blender, or they're gaming and yelling into their headset, or talking on the phone, or playing music, or what have you, and yeah, that's been a problem. I was actually just upstairs, sitting on my little perch on the steps in the house, in the living room, where I usually make these videos, and I heard this coughing noise. What's going on? Where's that coming from? No one's here. And I look out the window, and my neighbor is sitting on the stoop, coughing while, texting or whatever, and I'm just like, oh no, if I start talking now, I'm going to be bothering her, she's going to be coughing, bothering me. It's just one thing after another. I mean, I could make videos at night, but again, I don't want to disturb anyone who's sleeping. Anyway, enough excuses. I'm way behind. Making 3 or 4 videos in 1 week, it didn't help because now it's been, I don't know, 3 weeks or something since I made the last one. Still on the 90s, haven't even gotten to the audios yet. But if you haven't been watching lately, this series is me going through some of the biggest summer movie seasons of years past. Biggest in terms of box office, but also cultural impact and influence. The last one I did was 1996, and now I'd like to talk about a very big year, 1999. And there was a lot of really big movies that came out in that summer, but I think probably the biggest, the one that everyone was waiting for, anticipating, was of course the first Star Wars movie in over 15 years. The one prior to that came out in 1983. I was 10 years old. That was Return of the Jedi. And so in 1999 I was 26, right? 26. Seemed like a really long time. The wait between, say, Revenge of the Sith, Episode 3, and Episode 7, The Force Awakens, was just a little over 10 years, basically like 10 years, 6 months. But that seemed like a much shorter period of time compared to the previous lag, because I'd basically gone through high school and finished school and was living on my own, and a whole bunch of stuff had happened to me. Not only that, but like junior high as well. We call it middle school, some people call it. But yeah, I had changed quite dramatically and grown up and become an adult by the time the first Star Wars movie in quite a while came out, and everyone was super hyped about it, and some people loved it and some people hated it, like me. I mean, I don't hate it as much as Attack of the Clones, but still, it's not a terribly good movie. There's plenty of eye candy in it, but and there's a few things to like. John Williams, of course, Duel of the Fates, the big theme from that movie, and of course Darth Maul and his double-bladed lightsaber and the big duel at the end. But aside from that, there's not a great deal of excitement in this movie, and certainly not in the way of dialogue and acting, which is substandard, really. But made tons and tons of money, of course, because it was Star Wars and everybody was just thrilled about it. But at the end of the year, I think people were probably more thrilled about a movie called The Sixth Sense, which was something that was not anticipated really by anybody, because it was a Bruce Willis movie, but it wasn't an action movie. It was a supernatural film instead. The Sixth Sense was directed, of course, by M. Night Shyamalan, who had directed, I think, 2 movies prior to that had made no impact whatsoever. But then the trailer came out, and you have that spooky kid saying, "I see dead people," and suddenly everyone's interested. And not only does it become an enormous blockbuster, but it gets Best Picture nomination, Best Director, probably Screenplay, and of course 2 of the acting nominations as well went to that movie, Haley Joel Osment and Toni Collette. Interesting bit of trivia. Normally when they show clips of the people who are nominated at the Oscars, there's a line. They have dialogue, right? Except that year, Toni Collette was nominated for Supporting Actress alongside Samantha Morton from the Woody Allen movie Sweet and Low Down. And both their clips contain 0 talking from them. Toni Collette is listening to her son talk, basically, and we're seeing her react to that in probably the best scene in the whole movie. Samantha Morton, however, she plays a mute in the Woody Allen movie, so she isn't talking anyway. But I just thought it was kind of interesting that they had two clips that year in the same category in which the nominee didn't actually speak during the clip that they from the film they were nominated for. That's quite unusual. Anyway. Sixth Sense is a movie that I had a couple issues with, but, certainly recognize its effectiveness. The other big movies to come out that summer were an animated movie from Disney, Tarzan, and you had the first Mummy movie, which started its own little franchise that went on for, I think, maybe just 3 movies total. But Brendan Fraser is, a favorite of mine. He's a really terrific actor with great comic timing. Really sold that movie along with, the effects and the daring do, ultimately very lighthearted movie. And Notting Hill. Notting Hill was a romantic comedy that Hugh Grant starred in, a British comedy that they got Julia Roberts to play a fictional movie star named Anna Scott. And whenever the movie's on TV, I'm waiting around for the dinner party scene because I love the scene where they're fighting over the brownie and basically taking themselves down several pegs in order to win the brownie. It's a fun scene. And then they leave, and everyone inside the house freaks out because they just met Anna Scott. And you hear them from outside, and Hugh Grant says, "Sorry, they always do that when I leave." It's a great little bit right there. Big summer. Also, American Pie started that summer as well. The first American Pie came out. Not a movie I'm particularly fond of. It started its own series. They had 3 other theatrical sequels. Yeah, that's right. 3 of them. Plus a bunch of direct-to-video smut, basically. Just an excuse for boobs and butts and pratfalls and sight gags and what have you. Raunchy humor. Eyes Wide Shut came out that summer. Stanley Kubrick's final movie. There was a lot of hype around that. A lot of people were kind of disappointed by it, myself included. There are many other Kubrick movies that I like more, but it was certainly significant. And also the last movie that Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman made together before he decided to split with her. The Blair Witch Project. The Blair Witch Project was massive hit. Everybody was talking about that. I think that and The Sixth Sense were probably the 2 movies that summer that nobody could shut up about. And what's amazing about it is that, it was a very, very small budget movie. It was starring people you never heard of, directed by people you never heard of, but the marketing was absolutely ingenious and made that movie a $150 million hit off of like a $60,000 budget. Just incredible. Just really incredible. What was I was going to say something about that movie, but I forget what it is now. Oh, right, Chris Rock. Chris Rock had an incredible joke about that later in the year. He was hosting, I think, the MTV Awards, and he's just like, people were saying, what's the big deal about the Blair Witch Project? People are saying it only cost $60,000. Where the hell did all the money go? Somebody's walking around with $59,000 in their pocket. Yeah, certainly doesn't look like it cost very much. But they actually, had a lot of support there, just hidden out of view. 2 big disappointments that summer were The Iron Giant, which is very sad because it's a terrific movie, my favorite movie from that year. Brad Bird, animated film, of course, and then he went on to do the Incredibles movies, and he went on to do Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, and he's fantastic, and it's a fantastic movie, but I guess it wasn't marketed as well as it could have, and so it didn't end up making that much money, but it's, a movie that practically everyone loves who sees it, including me. The other big disappointment, if not outright bomb, was Will Smith and Kevin Kline in Wild Wild West. Will Smith, of course, killing it in Independence Day and in Men in Black. He could supposedly do no wrong. And he makes another movie with Barry Sonnenfeld, who did the Men in Black films, and it doesn't do very well at all. It's just a, by a lot of people's reckoning, a horribly misjudged movie as terms of setting and tone. And the humor is just not funny, and Kenneth Branagh is hamming it up as the villain. All in all, just nothing that anyone actually wanted. Nothing that anyone actually wanted is how it turned out. I'm sorry if that didn't make sense. That was poorly phrased. But anyway, huge bomb, huge disaster. And it took took a couple more movies for Will Smith to get his star luster back, at least according to what I've read. He's always, been a very likable guy. Always, got a lot of charisma and, I would see him in most things except for what's it called? Came out just a couple years ago. Some kind of holiday spiritual movie. I can't even remember. Collateral Beauty, right? Collateral Beauty. I read about that movie and it seemed ridiculous. And then I saw the trailer and it seemed more ridiculous. And then I read the reviews which describe the plot in more detail. Never mind. Okay, it's not even relevant. Anyway, that's 1999. You know, big summer. Couple of big bombs, but you know, I mean, hey, the bigger the summer, the bigger the bombs, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, before I get on to the next big movie, I would just want to sum up really quickly. I'm sorry, the next big summer that I was going to focus on. A couple of thoughts about the subsequent years, 2000 and 2001. In 2000, we had Gladiator, Best Picture winner, Perfect Storm, big 4th of July movie, Mission Impossible 2, also big hit, probably the biggest of the year, although not a movie that I like. And the first X-Men movie, starting a big new franchise and really kickstarting the comic book movie craze. Blade came out before that, a couple years earlier, but X-Men really, you know, was a huge mainstream hit on a somewhat limited budget, and really sort of, really kicked the comic book genre into high gear. Also, Dinosaur came out that year. That was sort of a problem production for Disney. It was an animated film, CGI animated dinosaurs that were inserted into live backgrounds. Pretty ambitious. I've never seen it. Never really been interested in it. But yeah, it was something. It was significant. It wasn't like a huge hit or anything like that, but it's certainly significant. Then you had Scary Movie. Scary Movie was, again, sort of launched a new comedy franchise, much like American Pie did the year before. The spoof movies, and we have basically several sequels to Scary Movie, but also then we have the epic movie and disaster movie and date movie and all Meet the Spartans and all those other really sort of cheap knockoff parodies that few people actually like, but somebody's making money off of them because they kept making them for a while. And the gigantic bomb, the huge Megaton Notorious bomb that year was, of course, John Travolta's passion project, Battlefield Earth, the adaptation of the first half of the novel by L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. And man, nobody liked this movie. I saw it eventually. Just I thought it would be good for a laugh. And it was good. It was good for about 4 laughs. 4 laughs throughout the whole movie, and after that it was, you know, pretty, you know, I won't, yeah, this is a family-friendly channel. Anyway, it was shit. Anyway, let's move on to 2001. We had Shrek, the start of the Shrek franchise, very successful animated franchise. And it was really the beginning of DreamWorks animation. Whereas Disney sort of dominated animation up until that point, then DreamWorks came along and was like, we're going to be a big player too. And then after that you had Illumination with the Despicable Me movies. We'll get to that a little bit later. What else came out? Second Mummy movie was a huge hit. Jurassic Park 3 came out. That was not as big of a hit. A lot of people don't like that movie. I really like Jurassic Park 3 a lot, actually. In fact, it's probably my favorite Jurassic Park movie. But then again, I always root for the underdogs. Pearl Harbor came out. Pearl Harbor was another Michael Bay movie. Funny coincidence that seemed to come out in 2001, because then 9/11 happened, you know, in the real world, just a few months later. I didn't see that one in the theater. I've sort of been avoiding Michael Bay movies. You know, I went to see Armageddon, just out of curiosity, but most of the Michael Bay movies I've skipped. Anyway, Pearl Harbor definitely made a lot of money. And then you had a whole bunch of other films that I'd just like to touch on real briefly. You had Kiss of the Dragon, which was a Jet Li movie, but it was also Bridget Fonda's last movie. I don't think she's acted in anything since then. Maybe one small movie, but that was like the last thing I ever seen her in. She's kind of retired, so that was bizarre. 2 big comedies launched the careers of their respective leading ladies. You had Princess Diaries with Anne Hathaway, and you had Legally Blonde with my favorite actress of all, Reese Witherspoon. She became a movie star, billing above the title, multi-million-dollar paydays, and she's still going strong. She has a huge multimedia company right now. With their fingers in a lot of pies, a lot of streaming, a lot of networks. She's got season 2 of Big Little Lies, and it's all because of Legally Blonde. She became an actual bankable person then. So good for her on that. You had the first Fast and Furious movie, another launch to a huge franchise, very successful. You had Moulin Rouge, which wasn't a huge hit, but you know, a lot of people loved it and got a Best Picture nomination. It's a movie that I really like a lot. The style is very, very aggressive in a way that I normally don't like, but for this one it worked, and I loved all the music in it, so that was great. A lot of other sort of disappointing movies. You had a movie that Spielberg directed, but it wasn't originally his project. Stanley Kubrick had been developing it for many years prior to his death. In 1999, well, in 1999, of course, he released Eyes Wide Shut, but he's sort of given up on AI and sort of passed it off to Spielberg. He's like, you know, you'd be a better director for that. So that movie finally came out. I saw it. Kind of weird, not totally on board with how it was made, but noteworthy, certainly noteworthy. The Animal came out. The Animal was kind of curious because it was the product of the writer's strike. The writer's strike that happened a couple of years earlier meant that studios were putting as many films into production as they possibly could. In order so they would have content. When the actors went on strike, they would shut down production, and so they needed to make sure that they had product to release in theaters and on TV sort of long term. And The Animal, starring Rob Schneider, was one of those films. It's also significant because they got Colleen Haskell from Survivor to play his leading lady, she's not an actor, and as far as I know, there aren't a whole lot of, you know, reality stars like her that ended up making movies except on the singing competitions, like on, you know, American Idol. Jennifer Hudson became an actor, of course. So that was sort of a little unusual. But the other noteworthy thing about that is that The Animal was one of those movies that caused Sony Pictures to get sued by moviegoers because they had their own employees appear in ads, appearing as just casual moviegoers praising the movie after they saw it. The people in the ads, they say, oh my god, it just came out of The Animal and I loved it, it was hilarious. They turned out to be actual company employees pretending to be moviegoers, and so Sony got sued by moviegoers because they claimed that they were, you know, convinced to see the movie based on those ads when it was just a big scam. So that was somewhat significant as well. Couple of rather big bombs. You had Evolution, directed by Ivan Reitman, which was a big special effects movie that didn't do very well. You had the animated movie Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, which is based on the game, and it's a movie that I thought was pretty good, actually. A lot of performance capture in it, and some famous people doing the voices of the characters, but that ended up also losing money. And then, of course, there was the notorious Tim Burton version of Planet of the Apes, with its totally inexplicable twist ending, and yeah, not a lot of people were fond of that one. Yeah, that's 2001 and 2000, and so the next video I put up, which I'll try to do very, very soon, will be on 2002, which is also very, very huge. Very, very huge. It'll be focused on that one. Thank you very much for watching. As always, the link below to my Facebook page and the playlist where you can see the other videos that I've done in this series, if you are so inclined. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again real soon. Later.